Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to replicate 6 Microsoft Forms features in Power Apps Canvas. Now, to be clear, I'm still a big proponent of the fact that if you are going to build a one-time entry form, then use Microsoft Forms for that. It is simple, it is a what you see is what you get, a WYSIWYG type of a form, requires literally no code, and it's a drag and drop. However, if you do come across those situations where you have to have an app or a form which requires adding, viewing, editing, then yes, go ahead and use a Power Apps Canvas app. So over the period of time, I actually went and took ideas from Microsoft Forms and I went ahead and rebuilt that into the Power Apps Canvas app. And now I'm going to share that with you. So these are the 6 features that are available in Microsoft Forms that I'm going to rebuild that in Power Apps Canvas app. And it's one of those situations where it looks easy, but when you actually start building it from scratch in Power Apps Canvas app, it does get a little bit confusing. And I'm going to share the tips and tricks with you. So stick around. This is both fun and very educational in case if you are a new-time Power Apps user or someone who's built it for a while. But first, here's my intro video. So let's get started. And here is the features in the Microsoft Forms that I've gone ahead and built. And these are the ones that we're going to go ahead and replicate that in the Power Apps Canvas app. And as you can see, I've already got it built and ready, but I'm going to walk you through it step by step. So let's do this. The first one is the limited selections in a checkbox control directly in the Microsoft Forms. And this is one of my personal favorites because it does it out of the box in Microsoft Forms. Not that easy to replicate that into Canvas apps. But let me show you what it is. All right, so here, when I come out directly in my form, I get this option. It says select total options, and it's equal to and 2. What this is asking me is that, hey, how many of these options would you like the people to select? Do you want to allow them to select 2, allow them to select 3? And this is what it means. So by default, for this question, I've put 4 options over here, and I'm only allowing them to select a value equals 2. So check this out. If I come over here now, if I do a 1, if I do a 2, after that, these options are grayed out. Literally, I'm clicking over there, nothing's happening. But it's also dynamic because if I unselect this, the boxes become available, which means now I can go select another checkbox, and then the other one's grayed out. You see how awesome this is? Now that you see it over there, let's go ahead and take a look at that in Power Apps Canvas app. So here I am in my Power Apps Canvas app. I'm going to select the Alt button. I'll just click on this one option over here. And this is where I am now in my Power Apps Canvas app, this screen. And let me just walk you through it. So I'm trying to replicate it as close to possible as what we have in the Microsoft Forms. So over here, the set total options, first I'm going to go and put in 2. And the moment I do that, these boxes appear. And so now I'm going to select on option number 1. I'm going to go select option number 4. And immediately after that, the other 2 disappear or basically get disabled. But again, it has to be dynamic. So if I go and uncheck option number 4, now if I select option number 2, that other 2, the remaining 3 and the 4, they go ahead and get disappeared or disabled. And it has to be very dynamic. So dynamic that right over here, if I come and X this out and if I go and say 3, now the third option becomes available. So if I click on 4, that is available over there and the other one gets disabled. See how dynamic this has to be? Well, Daniel, how did you build this? Good question. Let me show you how. So here we go. All right, I'm going to go back now into our designer view and we're going to actually go and take a look at a few things. First of all is when I am, first of all, let's take a look at what these controls are. Each of them is an individual checkbox control. So the tip I'm going to share with you is that some of these things, go ahead and do it for one checkbox and then just do a copy and paste. We will reduce your total number of time building this Canvas app. So we're doing a few things over here. First of all, we are putting a change in the on select. Well, let's take a look at that. So in the checkbox over here, by default, I'm in the text property. I need to go ahead and switch that over to the on select. Basically, I take that back. It's on the on check. So the moment I do the on check, I am going ahead and taking this variable and I'm going to take the value and add it 1 to it. Well, Daniel, what is this variable over here? Well, good question. So in the screen itself, on the screen in its on visible property, I have gone ahead and created a variable of a type integer, which is basically just a numerical value. So here's what it is: set var checkbox count, comma 0, and that's what is constantly being changed. So when I come over here back into the checkbox, in the on check, I take whatever is the existing value and I do a +1 to it. And this is the beauty of how these variables work, because think about it, back in the day, we would actually have to take a variable, whatever its value was, put it in a hold location, a hold variable, take that value, and then add it to the other one. But now, Power Apps magically will go ahead and still take the existing value, do a +1 to it, and save it back in the original one. It does this magic in the back end automatically. All you have to do is just type in the formula over here. So if you've understood this is for the on check, we do the exact opposite on the on uncheck. So in the on uncheck, I take the exact same formula, but I replace the plus with a minus, because we're going to go ahead and drop these total numbers over here. And so that's the exact same thing that I'm doing. I go ahead and select it for the option number 2. In the option number 2, when I go ahead and take a look at its on check, you see the exact thing is there. For on check, you do a +1. For the on uncheck, you do a -1. And the exact same thing is happening on 3 and the 4. Well, now that we've got this going, or we figured that out, we've got to go ahead and make sure that what is happening to the actual display mode of that. So let's go take a look at the display mode property. There's 2 ways to go access that. On the right side itself, you see the display mode is there, but over here, it immediately gives me an FX, like a power FX type of a formula, which means there's a formula over there. It's not just a true or a false. So if I go and click on this, this is the formula that I use. It's an if function. And the if function says that if the self.value, well, let's say, what is self? Well, self means that anytime you use self, it is referring to itself. Itself, whatever is the value of itself, which in this case is the checkbox 1. If the value is true, go ahead and set that up to edit. However, if the value is false and if the variable of the checkbox count is greater than or equal to whatever is the value I have put in this checkbox over here. See, that checkbox is the options text input. That is the value. Whatever is that value, if it is greater than or equal to that value, go ahead and disable that. This is the Power FX function that I'm using in the backend, the formula that I automatically use to go ahead and replicate that process, where I have to go ahead and assign this in the display mode property of each and every checkbox, and that gives me that effect where I now have made it completely dynamic. First of all, I'm not even using the control name, which is the option 1, or the checkbox 1 or the checkbox 2_1 or checkbox 2. No, I just use the self. That makes it a lot more easier, reduces my chances of making mistakes. Second thing is, I don't have to go ahead and hard code the number. I just go and take in whatever is the numerical value put over here, which is the options text input. And I've got in, just to make sure, I've made the format change into a number, but in the formula as well, specifically for the display mode property, this is the formula that I put in, and it works really well. So as a demo again, a fun demo again, I went ahead and I had 2 over here. If I changed, 3 over here. If I change this to 2, it automatically takes effect. See, the other 2 get grayed out over here. If I uncheck the option 3, it is dynamic. It says, okay, so your count right now is still 2. You've only selected 1. I go and put in the option 4. Now it gets grayed out. Otherwise, if I bump this up to, again, say 3, I get the other options. The other boxes are now available. I select that. And this is how we replicated that limitation of the checkbox that we saw in Microsoft Forms. We went in and replicated that in Power Apps Canvas app. Next, let's take a look at the set time duration. And this is also an amazing feature that was actually recently introduced in the Microsoft Forms. A perfect scenario to use that is when you're building a quiz. So what it does is you over here can go ahead and set a limited time amount. And once you've passed or hit that deadline or the time has ended, it will automatically disable the form functionality for you. And this is how you do it. In the Microsoft Forms, you click on these ellipses, you go and click on settings, and then under the options for responses, you will have to check this box for set time duration, and you got to put in an amount in minutes. 1 is the least that you can go, because if you go and hide it, it says only numbers from 1 up to 999. So I'm going to go and click on 1. The other thing that it does is that if I would just go and pretend like I'm going to actually fill this, I'll go and get the copy of the URL, X out of this, open up a new tab, paste it. This is first thing is this message comes up. It's like, hey, you have now 1 minute. And then after 1 minute, you are going to basically, get close. So it gives you a heads up that this is happening. And then after your 1 minute passes by, it will actually go ahead and automatically close it. So let's actually do a test, right? We'll very slowly do it. I'll also fast forward a little bit. So I'm going to now click on start. When I click on the start, right up on the top, it actually gives me a countdown, all right? One thing that I haven't shown over here, which I've actually shown in my other videos, which was link I've put below, is that once you come to the 1 minute mark, it'll give you a warning as well, all right? In our case, we set the limit as 1 minute, so we didn't see that warning. But now let's just wait for a few minutes and let's fast forward to the end. All right, so we are at the 9-second mark. It is doing a countdown. Here we go, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to pretend like I did something. And the moment we hit 1, it immediately went and took me out. I didn't click anything. It just said completed. Your answers have been submitted successfully. You can check now your score, everything. It automatically rerouted us to what looks like a different screen. Now that you've seen that working over here, let's go ahead and test that in Power Apps Canvas app. So in my Canvas app, I'm now in a different screen. I've dedicated this screen to test the set time duration. And here are basically all my controls that I've used. I've gone and put in a label. I've gone and put in this checkbox over here. I am putting in a timer control because, hey, something has to do the countdown for us. And in the timer control, I've basically got set the duration over here for 1 minute, which is basically the 60 seconds, all right? And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and now click on, the clicking on start will actually start the timer for us. And this basically just does a reset. So let's go and do a demo on this, and then I'll explain to you how everything was built. So I'm going to click on the play, and I've set the value as 1. So I'm going to click on start. The moment I click on start, you will see the countdown starts over there. So I'm going to click to start. The countdown has begun. I'll just wait for a few extra seconds. We'll come back to the end and see how that works. So now we're at the 50-second mark over here. All you've got is a few seconds left. Once this goes ahead and finishes, watch what happens. We're at 2, 1, and then automatically we got rerouted to a different screen. Well, how did that happen? Let's go and take a look. So first things I want to focus on is directly go back to our limited, go back to our correct screen, and I want to focus on this timer control first. So in this timer control, there are few of its properties that you need to change. So what we are doing is we are taking the total duration time. We are going to go ahead and take its value from here. So this is basically whatever was the initial value, you are going to now times that by the number of minutes that you have over here. That's what it is. So that's the easy part. In the duration, whatever was the value you took over here, in my case, it was actually a text control called duration text input. I took that and I went ahead and took its value, which is the number value, multiplied that by the default 1 minute value, and then it'll keep adding on to that. So that's the first property, the duration property that we have to go and change. Next, let's go and take a look at the auto start property. Again, same thing for the timer control. When I come up over here and if I scroll up, there is the auto start. In the auto start, it is dictated by this variable. So that variable is going ahead and being created by the on select of this button over here. See, in the on select, I go ahead and set the value of the timer to true. So that's the important thing. Again, back for this button over here, which is not just the button, it is actually the timer control. In it on start property, it is being dictated when it automatically start by this variable. This variable is gone ahead and set by the on select of this button. So that is the auto start. Well, then what happens when it ends? Let's go take a look at that. For the ending, the property we want to look at that is the on timer end. That's the one over there. See, on timer end. Moment I click on that, here is the power effects formula that I have. Once the time ends, like we get to the end of whatever is the minutes that we've allocated over here, it will immediately navigate over to another screen. See, and you can see that that screen is right over there, the start thank you page. And then the timer value is automatically set to false because we need that value of the timer to be false, because that's how I'll be able to go ahead and now start it again if I select this button over here. Very, very important piece over here. The whole thing that really makes this work is that timer control, but we're getting these feeds from other places. The first feed we get is how much is this going to run? What is the total duration? Well, this duration value comes from the numerical value we put in this checkbox. That's one. And then when should I go ahead and start it? Like, who is going to start it? Granted, I could have actually just clicked on the timer control over here, but I'm going to go and hide that in a real world scenario. So I actually went in and got this button over here to set this example. In this button's on select, the value of the variable is set to true. And by the way, this value goes by and sets back to false at the end of that. And this is how you replicate that set timer duration that we saw in Microsoft Forms back over here in Power Apps Canvas app. All right, so for the third one, we're going to take a look at the shuffling functionalities. How can I go ahead and shuffle all of these answers in this question? So here in Microsoft Forms, again, very simple. Right over here in the form, I've actually gone ahead and added this question over here. But once I've added the questions, these are one of those things which you only select once, not the multiple answers. But then in this ellipsis, you select that for more settings. And over here, you select the shuffle option. What this does is that if somebody came ahead and answered this question in the quiz, they failed. If they come back again, it will actually go ahead and shuffle this sequence of these answers so that people are not memorizing how the answers are working. They actually are tested for that knowledge. So the shuffle functionality is really great. Now that you've seen this over here, let's go to Power Apps Canvas app and replicate that. So here I'm going to my Power Apps Canvas app, and in my Power Apps Canvas app, I actually got this screen that I already have over here, and this is what it looks like. First things first, I just went ahead and set up this little gallery. This gallery already has some data. The data is coming from this collection. It's just some test data here. I'll even show it to you right up on the app on start over here. I've actually gone in and added this random questions. See, collection for random questions. It's just a simple gallery. It's not the content, it's how it works that's important. So let's go back to our shuffle questions. And over here, let me demo that first to you. So here we go. I'm going to click on play. And now I'm going to show you the first set of answers that we've received in this order. This is just replicating a scenario. The one that we saw in Microsoft Forms, it's replicating over here in Power Apps Canvas app, because let's face it, somebody would come in and they would actually click on something and then the question would come up, or they would come to the screen and the question would come up. Whatever triggers it is not the important thing. It's how this is getting shuffled. That's the important thing. Because let's face it, I'm clicking on this, the sequence is changing. It is getting shuffled. So how am I doing this in Power Apps Canvas app? Let me show you. So we're exiting from this preview, and all the magic happens in the on select property of this plus icon. So the formula actually is pretty neat. This is how it works. We are using first a shuffle function. That's literally a function name. It's shuffle function. And that shuffle function is actually using in conjunction with the first n function. So the shuffle function, as the name states, it is taking and shuffling all of the existing items in this collection, which could also be your answers to your question. Then it goes and puts that into the first n function. And the first n function, it works in this very interesting way. Let me actually show it to you. In the first n, right over here, this is how the context should work. First of all, you go ahead and give it whatever is the data that is going to go ahead and get it from. So if I were just to put into the collection ran questions, this is the source. After that, it needs to know what the count is. And that is why, for that sake, I went ahead and did the first n, put in the shuffle, but then to get the exact count of how many items that it's getting from, the first one that it's getting from, I went and did the count rows of the collection, which is the same collection I did the function. So this as together, it makes more sense when you look at the entire formula together instead of looking at it in bits and pieces. But this is the formula. This is the magic that actually goes ahead and takes all of these existing items over here, all of these items in that collection, or could be your data source. In our case, it is the answers to that question. It takes that and the on select, it will shuffle it, and it keeps shuffling it and keeps shuffling it, because when I do an on select, I basically do a clear collect. So this temporary location gets cleared, new set of questions come in a shuffled format. If I select it again, the collection gets cleared, new answers come in a shuffled format. So that's again what it is. Click on it, see the questions get shuffled over there. See right here, click on it, the questions get shuffled over here. And this is how we were able to replicate the shuffle function that we see in Microsoft Forms. We were able to replicate that in Power Apps Canvas app. So number 4 is the one response per person. Again, a very important functionality which is available over here in Microsoft Forms. Because right over here, if I click on the ellipsis, I click on settings, under the who fills out this form, there's an option for one response per person. The only caveat is that this can only work for people in our organization if they are the ones responding. If I go for anonymous, that option is not available. So just back over here for people in our organization, once you select that radio button, you've got to come and select that checkbox, and it works. The neat thing is that over here, we've already gone ahead and filled it, so we can test it. So if I go and now click on collect the response, if I just grab that URL, I know that I already filled out the response 1, which means the next time it should block me. So let's test it. I come over here to the new tab, I click on it, and it says your response has already been submitted. This form only allows one response per person. A really nice functionality in Microsoft Forms. Let's go and replicate this in Power Apps Canvas app. So I'm over here in my Power Apps Canvas app, and this is my scenario, all right? I'm on this screen over here. I'm going to click on plus, and I'm going to go and fill out this form. Very simple form. It's already got my name populated. I'm going to select one of these radio buttons over there. I'll click on submit, and it says my information is already there. I'm going to go back, click on it again, and this time it says, hey, this form has already been submitted by you. Well, how did all of this happen? Let's go take a look. So I'm going to go reset all of this over here. In fact, I'm going to click on that too. And now I'll let X out of the preview. And now, as you can see, this section over here is just the simple data, right? It's basically, I've just grouped it all. You could have gone in and used an edit form, whatever you wanted to do for that. In the submit, all I'm basically doing is collecting it. I'm basically going taking the data that we have from the text box, from the radio, I'm assigning it into the name and into an item. And then after that, I also go and make sure that I reset the radio button, reset the text. I mean, you're familiar with this. You've done all of this. But then I also go and update the variable. The variable is what's basically hiding it and making it visible, all right? But the magic, the real magic happens in, again, this plus section over here. So let's go take a look at what the on select of that icon is. So here we go. The on select of the icon, what it is testing to see is that, hey, is there any value already in that collection? And not just any value, is there any your value? Because what it is doing is it is filtering all the data in that collection, checking to see if any of your stuff is there. So that's why this formula is there. Filter in the collection, your name, and that name, does it include the value, the email address of the user who's using it right now? Does it include that? If the filter value comes with even 1 or 2, it should only come with 1, but even if it comes with any value, that means that it is not empty. If it is not empty, immediately go and hide it and show me the warning message. That's why these variables are getting updated in a very smart way, because if the value is empty, then go ahead and show me all the name and that radio button so I can actually fill the form. But if it is not empty, then go ahead and actually show me the warning message. So this is how the formula works. It all works inside the if function. It works really well. And again, as a quick demo, if we were to go ahead now and just see this form over here, fill it out, the first time it goes ahead and saves the data. See that saving the data is there in the collection. Now, if I go and click on plus, it is actually checking who is the logged in user, does a filter check against your collection, and if a value comes back, it doesn't show the form, it shows that this form has already been submitted by you. Very, very similar to what we just saw in Microsoft Forms. Number 5, it's the start date and the end date. And again, very simple to do in Microsoft Forms. In the ellipsis, when I click on that, I click on settings. Right over here, again, under options for responses, there is the start date and then there is the end date. This is how I dictate when this form should be available and when the entries of this form should be ending. That's how it is. So as an example, I've actually gone ahead and set the date as 14th. By the way, today for me is the 16th. I have set this date as the start time, as date is as 14th, and it ends on the 15th. So basically for me, this is already past tense because my date for today is December 16th. So if this works well, if I were to go ahead and I'll click on this collect response, go and copy it and replicate me submitting it, I just put the link over there and click on enter. It says the form is currently not accepting responses. So this is the beauty of how it works in Microsoft Forms. Let me show you how we can replicate that in Power Apps Canvas app. So in my Power Apps Canvas app, I have got this screen over here, and this is basically how it works. So right now, as we stand, all right, when I go ahead and actually show you my form over here, I've got the start date, I've got the end date, because I'm showing it to you because I want to demo it to you. In your case, you might actually hide it, whatever works for you over here, all right? So in my start date, I've put that as December 15th, all right? And the end date is still today. The way I've set it up is such that it should be the end of today. So today is still 16th. If you came tomorrow, it would be 17th, and yes, then the day would pass. However, if I went and changed this one to say 14, I click on OK, you see this one automatically became 15. And the way I did that is because whatever was the default value over here, I did a +1. That's how I got that. If I went and changed that to say 16th, we would see this. But if I went and put that into 1 day behind in the past tense, it disappears. So how is this working out, Daniel? Can I see the formula? Cool, let me show it to you. So I come back over here to the 16th. And what I did was these controls, which are very simple controls. As you can see, it's the radio button, label, text control, label. What I've done is I've gone ahead and grouped them. You could go and put that somewhere else as well. I just grouped them. And for that entire group, in its visible, this is the formula that I went and picked. What I did was the end date picker. This is the control called as the end date picker. You can see that end date picker over here. That is the one that dictates whether this should be visible or invisible. Because back when I click on the group, you can see that if the end date picker's selected date, if it is greater than or equal to today, then show it to me. But I want to share this little tip with you over here as well, is that I don't have to use the if function or the switch function over here. I just have to put this formula in, because this together, if it is true, then show it to me. This together, if it is not equal to, it automatically becomes false and it will hide it. No need to put in the extra work to add the if function. This function is 100% fully functional, and I just demoed it to you. So that's what it is. If this end date picker, if it is greater than or equal to today, that means it's true, this group will be visible. But if it is not true, it will be false and the group will be invisible. And just once again, I'll show that to you right over here. It is December the 16th, which is today's date, which means it is true. Therefore, these fields are showing, this group is showing. But the moment I go ahead and drop this down and put that OK over here, it is not greater than equal to, which means that formula turns into false and it hides over here. But if I were to go and change that to now 17th, it is still greater than equal to, that is true, and these fields show up over here. So this is how we were able to replicate the date and start time functionality which is there in Microsoft Forms. We replicated that over here in Power Apps Canvas app. And last, which is number 6, and definitely it's not the least, is the branching functionality in Microsoft Forms. And this is a little bit on the advanced level of Microsoft Forms, because again, it's not a formula, whatever, it's completely a WYSIWYG, but it does take your form building technique to a whole different level. So if you're not familiar with it, let me show it to you. What I've got over here is a question, and the question is basically asking you which color do you want to select. And the moment you select red, then it should automatically take you to this question over here. But if you selected blue, then it should skip the next question and take you directly to that. So it should branch off to a direction based on the one primary question that you asked. So this is the primary question that we are asked. So if I select on it, if I click on the ellipses, now I'm going to go and turn on add branching. And the moment I do that, these branch functionalities immediately show up. And they're tied to each and every option, because each and every option is based on what you select, it will branch off to the next question over there. So by default, it is next. So regardless of red, blue, green, or yellow, if you selected any of them, it will go to the next one. Our next one being is this question number 3. However, so for the red, next works. If you just want to be careful, you can always go for, instead of next, you go and go to option number 3, which is the red one. If you selected red, it goes to the question which is tied to red. So if you selected blue, I'm going to go now directly to the 4th question, because that is the blue one. And then the same thing for green. I'm going to go and go to the green one, so on and so forth. This is the branching functionality that is available over here in Microsoft Forms. Let me show you how you can replicate that in Power Apps Canvas app. So in Power Apps Canvas app, I'm going to go down to my branching functionality. And as a quick review, I've actually gone ahead and created a few other screens as well. So this is the original one to replicate that first question that I showed you. This one over here, the first question, I've gone and replicated that by a full screen by itself. Then instead of adding other simple questions, like this question, I added one for red, for blue, it should branch off to red, it should branch off to green. I've just added them as questions over here. In my example, I've added them as separate screens. So for a red one, I put a red color over here, it has its own set of questions. Blue, I put a blue one over here, it has its own set of questions, so on and so forth. One for green, one for yellow. But let's go back to the original branching one over here. This is the branching. And in the submits on select, this is where the magic of the Power Effects function happens. And one of the things I did was I showed you how you can do this 2 different ways. Both of them are completely fine, but I wanted to give you some variety. You can actually do this with the if function, and you can do this with the switch function as well. The only thing is, if you're using an if function, there's a little bit of extra code that you add. Switch, it's a little bit less, but they both work. So if you're using the if function, then what you have to do is go ahead and grab that entire controller's name, which is this one over there, the entire radio controller's name, which is this one. It's called the branch radio. You've got to go ahead and keep referencing that every single line. So branch radio.selected.title. If that is red, go to the red screen. If that is blue, go to the blue screen. If that is green, go to the green screen. Yellow, yellow screen. This is how it works directly with the if function. And just as a quick test, I have yellow selected, I click on submit, we're off to yellow. If I go back again and say randomly select blue, we're off to blue. So as you can see, it works really well with the if function. The good thing is though that you can also do this with the switch function, but the switch function's overall code amount is a lot less. So if I were to now go ahead and change this up to just make sure that I have commented out the top section, and then I go ahead and unhide this one and make sure that I don't have any errors. If I go and do this now, the switch function is available over there. So let's test that one out. I go ahead and do a preview. So I've got blue selected. I'll click on submit. We're in blue. If I go ahead and click yellow, we are in submit. So the switch function is also working. The only positive side for the switch one, if I can mention that, is that the overall amount of code that you write for switch is a lot little. So if you've been comfortable with using if functions, go ahead, use that as an if function. But if you want to try out something new for the navigation, go ahead and try the switch function as well. Both of them work really well. So this is how we were able to go ahead and replicate the branching one that we saw in Microsoft Forms right over here in Power Apps Canvas app. Now, there are other features in Microsoft Forms that we could replicate in Power Apps Canvas app. Two, for example, are the progress bar on the top. We can replicate that in Power Apps Canvas app. Or the customized thank you page that Microsoft Forms has, we can replicate that directly in Power Apps Canvas app as well. But I personally selected these 6 because they are highly used. So hopefully this video was helpful to you, and as always, keep using both Power Apps and Microsoft Forms. Hey everyone, hopefully you found this video useful. And if you did, can you help me help you? Can you subscribe to this YouTube channel? Because remember, I provide fresh content on a weekly basis and it's 100% free. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much and pass the word. But if you haven't, subscribe, click on the bell notification and let the learning begin.